Trail talk time. Out on another beauty of a trail. Just breathing in that fresh chi. Beautiful sunny day out today. And today I wanted to talk about, education and our modern education system in many countries at least here in Canada and in the US and so many countries. I was watching this amazing talk with the Dalai Lama in an interview with someone the other night, and it was so inspiring. Like, I just agreed with everything he was saying. They were talking about so many issues in the modern world and, how we can deal with these things in better ways. And he talked about, how we start off in this life, in this beautiful state, recognizing our oneness with everything. And they've even done studies showing that babies, the way that they interact with the world, they really show no distinction within their experience between their inner world and their outer world. It's all just one happening, one experience, one flow of life. And this is such a beautiful way of being, realizing our connection with everything and everyone. And, he talked about how once we get into the education system, we start to break things down and put up these divisions and these walls. And, we start to lose that sense of oneness. We start to build up our identity, and, maybe we'll learn about the countries and what country we're from. And so we might start to identify as that country that we're from. Like, for my example, saying, I am Canadian, right? And it's fine to, learn all of these things. We need to be able to break life down into categories and everything to communicate. But I think the problem arises when we start to identify as all of these, limiting things. And we start to put these limitations on ourselves. And we lose that, that sense of oneness with all. And the modern education system is mostly focused on the external world, right? And so we're always reaching outside of ourselves all the time throughout our life. And they don't really focus on teaching us about our inner world, as he called it, right? Learning about the ways of the mind and those inner workings of the energy or the emotions and how to deal with things. And so people are going around in the world and they don't know how to deal with their inner world, with their mind, with their emotions. They haven't been given proper training, right? And so I think, I totally agree with him that we need to incorporate that as well within more of our schooling system. But instead, there's one system that all of these kids are put into and leading them down one track, just shoving down information into their mind, just giving them facts and telling them to remember them. And we're never really taught, how to learn about ourselves and the best way for us to learn. They expect us all to learn the same way. And I have like a vision in my mind of more traditional cultures having a better way of teaching, allowing children to explore their own nature and find out, their own gifts and talents, and people would start to help to nurture that and bring that out of them. That's what the word education means. It comes from the Latin educare, which means to bring out. So instead of just shoving all this information into us, I think it's important to be able to learn how to bring out our natural gifts and abilities and learn about that inner world. And, you know, we see children playing with other children, right? And they're so present, they're so in the moment, they're not judging others based on like their skin color or their race or culture, where they're from or how much money they have, stuff like that. They're just gauging their experience on the present moment and, you know, living by that feeling. And it's such a beautiful thing. You know, there's so many issues going on in the world because we're all feeling divided. You know, we're not experiencing that oneness, that deep connection with everyone. And the Dalai Lama spoke about how we all need more compassion, right? Living from that altruistic perspective, having concern for your neighbor, for one another. And he talked about how we're a social species, right? There's been a lot of science talking about that. And looking at, you know, when we're first born and how a baby interacts with the mother and needs that deep connection. But eventually, as we, you know, start to get put into this education system, we slowly but surely start to lose that connection. We start to divide and look at life like it's us versus them. And this brings about that, you know, competition against one another. We feel like we have to always compete because it's us versus them, when that's not always the case. You know, there's a quote by Mark Twain. He says, "I never let my schooling get in the way of my education." You know, it's up to us. You know, being in this system, we have to be the ones to continue that true education, even if we're going to school, or maybe we've already gone through this schooling system that's programmed us so heavily. It's still up to us to, you know, ultimately decide our fate. You know, our life is in our hands. You know, they taught in ancient Egypt, know thyself, right? Know thyself. I think we've, you know, so many of us have lost that sense of true self beyond all of these limiting things. We start to say, well, this is me, this body, you know, this voice. But really, these are all part of that, you know, illusory world, the illusion, or the Maya, as they said in the Indus Valley, of the physical world, the world of form, right? But again, science is showing us in quantum physics that there's so much going on beyond the surface, right? There's so much more than meets the eye. And the rules are a lot different in the quantum realm. But this isn't some realm that's like separate from us, from what's going on in the physical world of form. This is just another layer of it. And so we're shown that there's, you know, a deeper truth to our reality. And I think so many problems arise when we don't see that fullness of the truth, and we're only living as if this illusionary part of the world of form is the only truth. Then we start to get so caught up in all of those little things because we think that we're separate from everyone else, right? We're living from the ego and we're feeling disconnected from everyone. And so obviously, we're not going to care how we treat people, how we treat animals, how we treat this world, if we think that we're just separate from it all. But really, that's so far from the truth, right? Everything is connected, everything is one. We're all affecting each other and affecting the whole. And when we live from that perspective, we see, what I do to another, what I do to this planet, I do to myself. And that to me is the most important thing for us all to realize, We're all one. You wouldn't want somebody else to bring harm to you, to put hatred and negativity towards you, to bring violence into your life. You have to flip around that perspective sometimes. I think that's what we desperately need on the planet. For more people, for us all to recognize that oneness, so we can really start living from love and compassion, living in a more altruistic way. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share for today. I hope it was helpful. And I would love to, hear anybody's comments or suggestions about, how they go about educating themselves beyond the schooling system, and perhaps some ideas about how we can start to bring some beautiful changes like that into the world of education, so that our children who are coming up, the next generations that are going to be running this world, have a good chance and aren't so, lost along the way. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share for today. Have an amazing day. Peace and limitless love.